Hey guys, welcome to another live play&Explain video. This time on a Sunday afternoon. So let's see how the action will be going. Ace 5, easy continue versus 3-bet, mainly by flatting. Could also sometimes 4-bet. And on this roll, we'll go for the call. But I would expect him to play a bigger c-bet sizing. I think versus half pot, I probably still want to continue. Given that I have some backdoor straight draws and the backdoor flush draw, of course. So I think ace 5 is a way better hand to call it than like ace 9, I would say. And 7 versus the big 3-bet is feeling kind of close. Probably in those positions you still have to call, but the low under pairs I would look to mainly fold versus his sizing. We face a check on the turn, which is pretty interesting. I think our hand is we don't have a high betting frequency, of course, but we do have a lot of strong hands as well. We have ace king off in those positions a bunch, we have king queen suited, pocket checks, king check, and I think ace 5 is just a perfect hand to barrel and always bluff the river. Here on the turn versus half, it's kind of close. Player does look like a recreational and he goes snap, bet, bet. Going to go for a fold. And the reason why ace 5 is a pretty nice candidate to bluff here is I would expect his main hands to check the turn to be hands like Jack 10, pocket 10s, queen check, those sort of hands, maybe pocket 9s which improves on the river to be fair. And with our hand we just have pretty great unblockers. And let's say he has a hand like ace jack, this would probably be a hand that he mainly calls down. So I think our hand is really nice to bluff. And yeah, the pocket 7's hand is pretty ugly. Versus half pot, we certainly have to defend in theory a bunch. But I have a note that this guy is 3-betting a little bit less than he should, so when he has a stronger range, overfolding on the turn is not too bad, I think. Table 1 on those monotone boards, blindly blind, usually you start out checking a bunch. Face the insta check back. Interesting. So I think just going for 75 is fine. Maybe you could argue for some exploitative bigger sizing given how fast he checked back. In table 2 we will mix bet and check. Versus a weaker player, I tend to prefer betting with those sort of hands. He goes for the turn donk. I think we always continue here. Don't see much point raising, just going to call and call as well on this river. Table 1 we play a big bet check strategy and then on a high roll. I mean 6 is probably always checks, I think 5s in those positions certainly can already start betting big. And here we will just call down. I'm not even sure if he does this with an ace. And he has all the missed draws in the world. But he somehow turned off with 9 for off. But yeah, I think it's a pretty printing bluff catch spot. Also his sizing is very small, so he is quite polarized. Like I said, I don't think he does it with ace 8. So when he's already saying he has like 2 pair or somehow a 9, then his value range is just very narrow. Table 1, those ace low boards are not great, but when it's this low, it starts to get good again, because you should fold 3s and deuces pre-flop quite a bit. So in theory, I shouldn't have all the sets at at the high frequency. So if it was ace-6-5, we would have to check back a ton as a button in those positions. Table 2, we can go either way. Lots of recreationals, it looks like, right now in the pool. Versus the check, now I'm just going to start betting, going for 2 streets on many runouts. Checking back again, probably also not be too bad. And on the ace turn, I don't mind just blocking. He donks the river. Certainly an ugly spot, not too easy for him to have bluffs there. But I feel like versus the sizing, I'm going to call. But yeah, don't expect to win there too often, but versus half pot, I don't need to be right all that much. He could have a hand like ace-5, maybe he floats the turn with some king-queen off or something. As he is a recreational player, you can't just really narrow his range down too much. But yeah, don't expect to get rich calling in that spot. If he donked any bigger, I think I would be out of there. Table 2 versus the bigger sizing, I think my hand probably just always calls. The biggest flush draw that there is. Not really too much backdoor straight potential either. And on the turn we will face a big overbet, interesting. I mean, jamming, there's certainly some merit into jamming here. Just really nice if he folds out his king, queen, queen, check, 7-8, all those hands have infinite equity versus us. So I think maybe I should have gone for the jam. Like if he folds, bet folds this hand, it's just great. Of course, the downside is I get all the money in versus his strong hands. On a high roll, we'll go for the free bet, table 1. I think in hindsight, I would have liked to see myself jamming on the turn. A recreational player might also bet call too much with flush draws, which was of course great when we have the pair. So yeah, I mean calling is of course also fine, but I think jamming probably would have been the higher EV play here. As the small sizing and the presumably weaker player, we could potentially think about calling, but with the 200 zoom rake structure, a lot of the profitability from flatting goes away. Ace-9, I will ice raise a few lamps. And yeah, pretty soft pool right now. Get called by 2 recreational players in the blinds. And this guy donks. I think I'm just out of here, but we will see what's going on there. So he just donked a random middle pair. So this would be like a pretty useful read. So when he checks, he probably is just super weak. Here we'll go for the flat though, because he bets 2x and both players are recreational, so I think we can profitably call. And with the stone nuts, I mean, this boy is just great for range, so I would just get 25% with range probably. And let's see where we go from there. Both players call. One left, this sort of hand ever wants to slow play. I think with a recreational I don't really want to do that. Like if I bet the turn, I assume he won't fold a hand like queen check. Weak flush draws, hands that he shouldn't put more money in, and on the river now it's an easy all in. I think anything else is pretty bad here. Just want to extract the maximum value versus the recreational player, who could easily have a 10, he's never folding a 10, he could have ace check, could have king queen, he has so many hands that he never folds. So yeah, anything else other than all in I think is a big punt there, where you miss out on a lot of value. Five's facing the big free bet, I'm just going to lay it down. Is 10 suited. Again, I roll pretty high. Versus the smaller size, you are less inclined to free bet because you get a better price on the call. But still, on a high roll, I think it's fine. Also, usually people don't 4-bet enough in those positions, so you don't have to 3-bet fold as much as theory dictates, or 3-bet call. Pretty good board for us. We start with a small bet, and table 2 is a mix, but I think our hand bets more often than not. Certainly a spot where it could get ugly when we face a check raise. You should start check raising a lot of middle pairs like 9-8 suited, 7-6 suited sort of hands on the flop. And if your check raise is small, of course you always call. If your check raise is pot, we can already start to fold some king X. But versus the small check raise, we will call. Also maybe interesting, it did take quite some time before the check raise. Table 1 I will open wide versus the recreational. I think if you watch my videos, you've already seen me do this a bunch. Turn where I expect him to slow down quite a bit. Like his king 9, king 7 just lost a lot of value. And that's half pot. Interesting. I mean, versus that sizing, I'm always calling. Not loving life, of course. Don't really think there's too much point in starting to raise with this sort of hand. I think a 9 or a 7 could start raising, where block is strongest hands. Let's see, like what could it, 10-8 suited, 5-8 suited, 6-8 suited. I wouldn't expect him to have too many flushes here, like maybe a hand like check 8 in spades. It's really tempting to bluff here. There's a lot of 10-8, check 8. I mean, close, really close. Having a check is not too great. Blocks some of his potential bluffs that takes his line. Yeah, you could call, you could fold. Bluff jamming, I mean, in theory, bluff not the thing without a spade, but I wouldn't hate it. This time we go for the call with the king 10. Yeah, I mean, weird hand, not really a sizing that you should use on the turn, but I think versus this we just have to click call with king check, I assume. So we will go mainly for the call. I think if this was button big blind we could raise with the backdoor flush draw, but in those positions when you raise flop you kind of already seeing you have two pair. And yeah, block on the reverse, it's ugly because he still has like 6-8, 10-8, 5-8. He still has a bunch of bluffs which didn't improve. And here it's, I think it's a check. If it was button big blind we could probably maybe block our hand for value, but in those positions not. And having a 10 is not too great because you block a lot of bluffs. Let's say at a hand like king 6, king 7. I would be more inclined to bluff catch, but I think king 10 can actually fold. Yeah, a lot of interesting spots today actually. A lot of close decisions. Really cool spot also here. Like it looks pretty standard, bet check bets, but there's a lot going on there. How you construct a range on the river, that you don't overfold, that you have some traps. It's not too trivial. Table 2 he goes for the insta check back. And I think just going for a pot step with the 5s. I don't really love checking 5s on the turn. I don't think I block too much of his check back range. Let's say I had pocket 9s. I would maybe be more inclined to check the turn from a theoretical perspective, because let's say a hand like 10-9, 9-8, those sort of hands he will probably check back again, but the 5 doesn't really block too many of his check backs. I don't expect him to have too many 5x in those positions. And table 2 is not a great board, where we have to do lots of checking. He goes for a very fast turn check, which I think already discounts like a lot of strong hands that he could have. So I think I just go for the bluff on the turn and he does fold. It's always important to not only think about how you should approach a spot from a theoretical perspective, but also take timing tells, etc. into consideration, especially when you play versus recreational players. Deuce is in theory not an open, with a pretty nitty guy in the big blind. I don't mind it. Like he's just going to overfold. So, and usually you would also not call deuces here, but when you have it so rarely, it's kind of nice to have deuces. So I'm actually going to go for the call this time. And here we could go for the squeeze or the call. He goes for 1/3, which is not really an appropriate sizing for the spot. Don't think we have, like, we fold probably like 5% versus the sizing with range. Our hand always calls. If he checks the turn, we will probably start bluffing our hand. And here table 2, I think checking again is fine. Not really going to get 2 streets of value with this sort of hand. And yeah, when we face the turn barrel, of course, we have an easy fold. And here we have an easy call and hope to not face too much aggression on the river. Could potentially do something funky like donk fold. If I think like this guy has a bunch of king check, which now checks back, but okay. Not value betting the king queen here. That's nice. But yeah, I think quite important with the ace check hand that you don't overestimate your hand on this sort of texture. Think like, oh, I have a top pair, top kicker, and the board is connected, I need to protect my hand. You're not protecting, you're just putting in money versus a range that will outdraw you a bunch. So I would be more inclined to bet the hand like queen check with the queen in clubs on the turn than ace check. But also that like would not bet too much probably. Table 1, of course a pretty great board for him. We certainly can have some raises and I roll pretty high. We don't have a backdoor flush draw, but I think this can still get in there. And probably barrels very aggressive on the turn because we unblock all of his floats. Let's say his hand like Jack 10 in hearts, Queen Jack in hearts, those sort of hands will continue versus the raise. And then fold on the turn if he doesn't pick up additional equity. So I think our hand is pretty nice triple barrel candidate actually. Probably low frequency check raise on the flop, but once you check raise you barrel often. Yeah, we just start with a stab. And we do turn very strong. Just thinking about how good is the queen for our overall range, but not too bad when we think that a lot of our check raises will be queen jack, jack 10 sort of hands. Sizing wise, maybe on the queen you could even go lower. Like what would you do here with queen jack, with queen 10? Not super sure if you want to stab half or third here. Facing the donk, I think I prefer calling over raising. See what he does on the turn. Not really a hand that wants to get free streets on all the runouts. That's half pot. Now it's more tempting to raise versus his sizing. Would not expect him to take this line with a really strong hand. Fortunately we get the fold on the turn. But pretty interesting hand, we'll review it later. Didn't end up folding. So yeah, I think just waiting until he gives us more information, and if he pots the turn I just call and we can just play the spot perfectly in position. If we face the 4-bet here, table 1, it's kind of close with 10s. Although this guy does seem to have reasonable 4-bet frequency out of position. No shame folding is in the tank. Getting a fold is great here. Tens is kind of marginal in those positions. And yeah, really lots of recreational players. Love to see it. Table 1, don't really think ace 10 benefits a bunch from betting here. Just gonna try to check down. That's half pot, interesting. Like if I had some notes on this guy, maybe you could do something here. Where, let's say, I have a note his steps bigger also, then we could start raising, because maybe his half pot sizing is just pretty weak. But without further information, I think just going for the fold is probably fine. Four out of 6 players are recreational players. I mean, that's insane. Perhaps some guys have mislabeled and they are just short stacking or something. Because usually on 200 zoom the rec to recreational ratio doesn't look quite as good. 10-6 will be a call if those guys fold versus his min open. I think versus the min open we don't really fold many suited hands. Let's say we have 10-2 suited, I think that could fold, but yeah. I think Dan is just too weak though, if he does anything. And this board is actually pretty great. I mean, of course we have some 4-5 suited, but we just don't hit this board at all. He has a pretty clear high card advantage and we just have to fold a ton for our weak hands. Also easy fold here. Let's maybe wait until one more interesting spot comes up. Ooh, pocket aces, that's good. I mean, probably should size down because he's smaller, but also he's a recreational player, so perhaps just going bigger is fine. And yeah, gonna go bet. Insta calls, nice. I think a6 is still a fold versus the min open. Like you do have to defend a bunch of weak a6, but a6 is the worst, so I think you get to market. Probably just betting half pot is fine. Unfortunately, the snap folds the turn. So let's play until we are on the next big blind. Okay guys, well, see you in the next one and have a nice day.